Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Sami Gayle is an actor. She sat down with me in Greenwich Village to talk about the work.
Let's start at the time period when you've landed the role, the audition process is over, and you have the script, and you don't have to petition for the role anymore. What's the first thing you do in your process with the script in preparation?
I immediately start to do research, not only about who the character is, but about the world that the character exists in. So for this script specifically, it's the world of debate. I had an attachment to that because I did it in high school. But I watched debates in person, online. I went to UPenn and watched a tournament happen there. But I try and really get in the world in which the character exists. That could be a time period, that could be a geographical place. That's the first thing I do, and then, simultaneously, I get to know who this character is as a human being. So from the script, what are their behavioral habits? What is the character afraid of? What does the character need? How do these needs and fears inform how the character responds in certain situations, right? Understanding the behavioral complexities of the character. It's interesting, I do a lot of preparation in that sense because I feel like I really want to get to know who a character is and sort of create an imagined memory for the character, what happened to them as a child, right? That's informed how they are as, a teenager in Candy Jar or a young adult, right? Those kinds of things. But then also so much of acting is about learning to, someone once said to me, acting is about training ourselves to be free, to receive from the person in front of you, and to be present with the other actors in the room, because acting is about engaging with the people you're playing off of in a very natural way. So all the work that I do beforehand is kind of the groundwork so that I can be present in the scene. And by being present, I mean informed. That presence is informed by, learning everything about the character rather than just like sitting and memorizing lines and just continually like repeating them. Not that I don't do that as well, but kind of getting to know who the person is the primary thing that I do.
And does that mean that you kind of make up past things that may not be in the script or in
previous life? Absolutely.
Like you're free, you feel free to do that. Like if I was thinking about that, I'd be like, oh, I don't know, is this what the writer was thinking that this was? I'd be like scared to do that. But you're free.
Well, oftentimes you develop that previous life with the people on set, right? The writer, the director, the producers. You determine the previous life because that informs, just like in real life, everything that we've done until this moment informs you and I sitting right here. Everything that the character has done until the moment that the script begins informs how they are in that moment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's often a collaborative process. It's not something that we do in a vacuum.
And are you somebody that needs and wants rehearsal, or are you just cool if there's no time for rehearsal on some things? Or
it depends. For this, we were doing a lot of fast talking in the debates for this movie specifically. There is something about, being well rehearsed and understanding, your placement in a scene, even just kind of spatially, so that when you're there on day one, you can engage with the actor in front of you without having to be worried about all of these other things that you end up being worried about if you haven't rehearsed the behavior beforehand, whether it be matching or where your mark is, etc. And rehearsal is great in that you get to know the characters better. It's not necessarily that you have to continually repeat and repeat and repeat the scene, just kind of delve into who the characters are, what their relationship is in the scene, and how they respond to each other. That really informs your performance later on. So in that sense, it's really great. Obviously, there's something magical about not rehearsing as well, because then, if you really, sit around a table and maybe don't rehearse but have in-depth conversations about who the characters are, you get to set on that first day and there's something...
It's like a freshness.
Yeah, there's a fresh... It's not naive, but there's just, a freshness to doing it for the first time, and oftentimes emotionally, before it gets in your system, that can kind of be really beautiful.
This movie, Candy Jar, was written by your brother, right? So just talk to me about that. Like, this is his first script?
Yeah. Well, he had written 2 others before this, but he wrote this one when he was 20 years old.
So here you are in the business a little bit, and he's not really a screenwriter yet.
No.
And so he just hands you a script and says...
So he had, right before college, I think it was between his last year of high school and his freshman year of college, he dropped a script on my bed and said, I want to make this movie. You'll be in it. Let's make it. And it's a vehicle for you. And I read it thinking, like, what are you talking about? He always wanted to be a congressman. I never thought that he would be writing screenplays. But finally, after having cast it aside, I read it, and it was phenomenal. And I brought it to my agency, and they said, this is an amazing script, but you need like $20 million budget for this. Why don't you write something that's a little more manageable for a first-time screenwriter who's also, 18 years old. And so when he was 20 years old, this idea came to him for the Candy Jar while he was interning at the Federal Aviation Administration in Washington. And he wrote it in 2.5 weeks. The first draft, we've read recently the first draft in comparison to the one that we ended up shooting, and thematically it's almost exactly the same. There was, at the same time that there was a lot of work put into the script, it was just all detail oriented. It wasn't the big general structure of the project. So yeah, he kind of thrust himself into the world of screenwriting unannounced, but he's made quite the splash, and now he is finishing Columbia Law School. We've started our own production company, and he's written 2 more screenplays and 2 plays, and we're kind of running with it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me just about where you are in your career right now? Because when I read up on you, I'm fascinated that you are turning down roles right now and like focusing on school. You seem very calm and like not panicked about this
I
business.
am. You just trust me. I'm panicked. No.
Is everybody around you like saying like, what are you doing? You need to do as much as you can. Like, why are you turning down roles?
I think quality over quantity is really key in this business. Not peaking too soon, making sure that you're just making things that you're passionate about. That's something that Adrien Brody instilled in me when I did my first film, Detachment, and that's something that I've really kept with me for, my entire career. But for me, it was very important to go to college. I was homeschooled from the first month of middle school to college, and I wanted to have that experience to form a family of friends that now I can't imagine not having had, and to gain a wealth of knowledge that will allow me to approach the way we've been talking about my process, to approach characters in an intelligent, informed fashion, right? I was a political science art history major at Columbia, double major. And I, studying these historical time periods, now if I get a script about Marie Antoinette, I know about what happened in the world at that time. I know about the art that was, at the forefront of society at that time. You have just a different picture of the world, and it makes it really much more interesting to me to delve into these different spheres in film. But that's been great. I have watched at the same time all of my friends around me kind of pursue what they want to do for a living at school. They're on an econ track because they're going to be an investment banker, right? They're going to be an engineer, so they go to the engineering school. For me, I studied things that would give me this knowledge base, and that's why I chose Columbia, because it had a mandatory liberal arts education on top of that, so I just wanted as much as I possibly could throw at my system, stimulus-wise. But now it's time for me to just kind of put all of my energy into what I want to do for a living, right? Self-generating content with my brother, starting a production company. I've been sitting in the editing room now with Tom Selleck when he's editing at Blue Bloods, shadowing directors, engaging in every aspect of this process, because while it looks like I'm calm, I'm probably the least calm person he will ever meet, and that's why, that mentality has gotten things like Candy Jar made. But, at the same time, I feel like now I've taken the time to go to school, very happy I did it, but now it's time to push forward full force.
But it's just with what you want to do and not what you say should do, or what a actress should be doing at this time. I'm sure there's people around you saying, you should be doing this small little role in the superhero movie because this is what, people
And I wouldn't necessarily turn down a small, as long as it speaks to me, I still take on those roles. It doesn't matter how big, how small, the role just has to speak to me. But I won't just do a film because, I want to fill up that day's time. The choices you make inform what offers you get in the future. And so I take that very seriously. At the same time, it's important to have experience. You never know. I never do not take a meeting. Even if I'm not going to do the film in the end, I always listen to what the director has to say, because you never know, A, who that director is going to be in 10 years, if they're new and have never done anything before, and B, what you can learn from that meeting.
I love this little thing that you said that Adrien Brody said to you. It's you and me against the world for this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I read that in some article.
Yeah, that's something I always...
And I kept thinking about that. It kind of inspires and riles you up, and
yeah, it does.
But just tell me what that meant for you.
As an actor, we need to be chameleons, right? We need to shed our skin to adopt the skin of somebody else. And that's not what a chameleon does, so that doesn't really make sense. But we need to be able to, camouflage in a way, adapt. And we need to leave whatever happened to us during the day or last week or in our personal lives behind, and just be present with the person in front of us while doing the scene. And that's a very hard thing to do, to train yourself. And that's what it means, training yourself to be free. It means being so free that you can be fully another person without taking any of your baggage with you, because any of that baggage will hinder your ability to be emotionally present. And You and Me Against the World is just about that. It's about being him and I and nothing else mattering around us, all the cameras falling away, and just being with one another in the scene. And that, to me, represents an actor's truest freedom.
How long have you played this role in Blue Bloods?
8 years. We're about to start our 9th season.
One thing I always wanted to ask somebody that's done a role for that long, when a new director comes on the show that never directed before, and I know TV directing is different than movie directing, but you know this character so well. Like, is there ever a director who tries to direct you out of the character and you're like, that's not what she would do? Or is there any time a new script comes and you're like, I would not say this?
Yeah, well, we all speak up for our characters.
What does that mean? You speak up?
So we, have conversations if there's something. Fortunately, I work on a show where the writers are really, really in tune with having watched every episode beforehand and really knowing the characters well, because most of them, not all of them, but most of them have been with us from just about the start. So they've grown as we've grown. But, we approach every script as if it were the first script that we were attacking. So there's a dialogue about it. If something doesn't feel right, they are more than happy to have a discussion about it and to make it feel more right. So it's a very collaborative environment, and therefore, I feel very free to voice my opinion when something is not seemingly in line with what my character would say, but most of the time they have it pretty spot on.
You've come from theater, so you know the idea of doing something over and over again, all that. But in this case, in this TV show, you've done this character for so long. Is there just this ease now with when you go on the set that, like, I'm just wondering if it shifts over into this other kind of realm, a different kind of acting than it would be if it was a new thing now that you've known this.
Yeah, well, you get to spend time and grow with a character, which is unusual. Usually you spend 7 weeks on a movie and that's it. For this process for Candy Jar, I was fortunate to have watched her evolve over 4 years of rewrites. So I got to be very close and in tune with the character, and also she was written tailor-made for me, so she was very much like me as a person as well. It was kind of a love letter to our high school, transitional years into college. But for Blue Bloods as well, seeing a character grow through, 8 years, it's like all that work I was talking about a memory, right? Like creating a memory and a backstory for your character. You see it unfold. So now my backstory is, the episodes that happened, 8 years ago, right? That time that I spit out a meatball, at family dinner when my cousin sneezed on it, and forming, bonds over time also with my cast members, having that familial memory as well. It's really made it an interesting experience to continue playing the role.
When you started out and you were a teenager, were you worried about this business as a woman, and have things changed in this last year? Were you feeling more optimistic about things you may have been worried about before?
I think that the environment has changed in that people feel more comfortable coming forward with things that happened in the past, and also have sort of taken the lead in the activism sense to ensure that we change, the rules of how things work in the present, so that these things are, these behaviors are hopefully eradicated and will not happen in the future. There's certainly a lot of accountability in this time right now, because the environment has changed such that everyone feels that they can come forward. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the past felt almost frightened that, because of the power dynamics, they wouldn't get a job or, et cetera. And now all of that is changing, and it's empowering, but also fantastic that hopefully with these changes, we are paving a world where this can no longer happen.
Is there anything you'd like to do that people don't know yet that you can do?
Yeah, so I started on Broadway dancing. I think it would be great to do something like a La La Land, where I could really, I was a professional dancer, where I could really, really dance. Or like a remake of an old Audrey Hepburn film, where dance is something that's incorporated into it, like a funny face or something like that, for sure. And also I sing also. So that would work with a kind of La La Land-esque movie. I've been fortunate to be blessed with a lot of success at a young age. And I just take everything kind of one step at a time and try and remind myself just to be grateful for everything I do have, rather than to be constantly like, what don't I have? Because, this business is so hard, and people could work their whole life and not get the break that I've gotten at 11 years old or at 14 when I started Blue Bloods, or be able to get a script that their brother wrote in the hands of a great producer and then of Netflix, and then have it, showcased to the world. I really just have to be pinching myself every day, rather than kind of questioning what more I could do. However, the fact that I do constantly question what more I could do drives me to keep pushing forward.
If we were to sit down again in 10 years from now, I don't want to say like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I hate that question, but like, you're saying you're in the editing room with Tom Selleck and everything, and shadowing directors. Do you see yourself directing?
Oh yeah, I think I see myself. So 10-year question, it's fine, I'll answer it.
Yeah.
Ideally, I'd love to be doing Broadway, a TV show or film at the same time. So going to do a show at night and then doing that during the day. And hopefully I'll continue to be able to self-generate content with my brother and the production company that we've started. And I will be able to take on other aspects of the process. So Chad writes, Chad and I maybe could co-direct, producing. Right now we have incredible producing partners on each of the films that we're working on. But eventually it'd be really awesome if we were able to kind of take all of these different aspects of the business into our own hands and really do it all in-house.
Will you sit with me in 10 years again?
Absolutely.
Sami Gayle, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project.